I think people get tattooed because, you know, there's not a lot of real stuff left in the world, and it's all like a 24-hour news cycle. Nothing lasts. With tattooing, it's blood, it's pain, it's permanence. When you get that needle in your skin for the first time, you have to be there. You can't just call it in. You have to sit there and take the pain, and then sit there and heal it, and then you got to live with the consequences of your action. Hey guys, welcome to today's little video. So today we're going to talk about a contentious subject, which is apprenticeships. I say contentious because, you know, in the old days, the only way you could learn how to tattoo was through an apprenticeship, through a shop, through someone who knew what they were doing. You had to learn how to make needles, you had to learn how to do things with ink, you had to learn how to tune machines by someone. You have to be taught, right? It's very different now. So many people learn how to tattoo on YouTube, Instagram videos, TikTok videos, you know. And so when I say contentious, I mean, for those of us that care about tattooing and are purists and traditionalists, the idea of somebody learning how to tattoo over the course of a month on a YouTube video course or a tattoo school, you know, it's not something that I like or we like, but it's the reality of it. So I mean, I can't really care anymore. It's just the way it is, right? The horse is bolted from the stable, the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, and there's no way to put that toothpaste back in the tube. You know, I mean, I've got people working for me that probably learned to tattoo on YouTube or TikTok, right? And they do nice tattoos, so it is what it is for that. What I'm going to talk about is apprenticeships for traditional tattooing and sort of a different pathway, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey on how I learned, right? So I did not do a formal apprenticeship. Back in Canada in the 80s when I started tattooing, you know, I was quite young. I started tattooing in 86. I made a homemade machine, and a few of us did a little bit of fucking shitty scratchy stuff on ourselves. Wasn't very good. I did a few on other people, and I stopped because I knew there was a right way. I absolutely knew, we all knew, anyone who cared about tattooing that far ago knew the right and the wrong way. And tattooing from home, tattooing yourself with stuff and learning how to do all that jailhouse style tattooing, we knew that was wrong. So fast forward to the early 90s, I bought equipment. I bought like the Super Saver Tattoo Kit #2 from Huck Spalding and Rogers. And I got that equipment. I did one tattoo on myself, and I went and got a job at a shop. All right. Now the job at the shop I got wasn't the best shop, but it was a shop. So I was in a professional environment. I had an autoclave, all that sort of stuff, right? Didn't really know what I was doing that much, but I had a good handle on how to make a tattoo, how to be hygienic. But I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a role model, and I had no one overseeing me. So I made a lot of mistakes. And then I worked there for a couple of months. I saved up some money. And then I went and worked with the infamous Crazy Ace Daniels at Way Cool Tattoos in Toronto, Canada. And that was a real shop. He was a real tattoo guy. I've been tattooing for 30, 40 years at that time. And he took me under his wing. And I worked there for years. I worked with some really good tattooers. I won't name drop right now, it doesn't matter. But some of the tattooers that went on to become really famous, and some guys who I still really respect to this day. And so that was sort of where I cut my teeth. But it was a street shop, right? So I was doing a lot of flash, you know, stuff off the wall, Panther 32, Dragon 15, Wizard 69, all that kind of stuff. And so I learned how to tattoo technically in that environment. Not necessarily my drawing I learned there, but my technical stuff, right? And you know, you're working in a small room with 5, 6 other guys, you're watching, you're learning, you're exchanging, this kind of thing. Needle making, all that kind of stuff. And then I moved to Europe, and that's when my sort of custom tattoo thing sort of took off, and I worked at some custom shops and started learning that different approach, right? Of drawing stuff and being more of a creative tattooer. But back in those days, you couldn't tattoo if you couldn't make tattoo needles, because there were no pre-made needles. So every tattooer had to make their own needles, every single needle. No one's going to do it for you. It's a shitty job, right? No one likes doing it. You're breathing in toxic fumes. You're burning your fingertips. You know, it was the great barrier between the masses tattooing and the chosen ones who were tattooers, right? So that's why you could only get brought into tattooing through someone teaching you. Because if you couldn't make needles, you couldn't tattoo. And there was nowhere to learn how to make needles. And it wasn't intuitive. You couldn't just figure out how to make needles. You had to be shown. So up until about the year 2000, this was what tattooing was, right? It was a very protected and guarded trade. And there were gatekeepers. And there was a weeding out process. It kept tattooing true, right? It kept the ethics of tattooing in there, the morals, this kind of thing. Whether you buy into that stuff or not, I do, right? It's up to you what you think about. But for us, you know, you belong to something special because there were rules to tattooing, you know? And this is how the rules were enforced, is we weeded out the people that we didn't think would be good for the business, good for the craft, good for the trade. So, and this is where apprenticeships came in, right? So you'd have an apprenticeship, and there'd be a hazing process to weed out the undesirables. You know, similar to joining a bike gang or something, right? You know, so there's a lot of tomfoolery and practical jokes and bullying, right, to sort of figure out what people were made of. Tattoo shops used to be quite violent places. You know, I've been in several fights in the shops that I've worked in with drunks and customers and, you know, stuff like this. So it was a heavy scene, right, back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Less so now, right? Less so now, at least where I am. So, so I've always taken the apprenticeship route seriously, even though myself I didn't do a proper apprenticeship. What I did was when I moved to Europe and I started doing custom tattoos, I found all the people who I admired and whose work I liked and who I would want to apprentice under. I mean, I'm in my 30s at this point, right? I've been tattooing for probably 8-9 years at this time, and I sought out these people and I went and worked for them. Just doing little stuff, right? I went and worked for Trevor McStay, I worked for Henny Jorgensen, I worked for Greg Ori, I worked for guys in Norway, I worked for people in England, you know, and I went and worked under these guys just to be around them and to learn from them. I worked in New York City with Troy Denning, I worked in California a little bit, you know, I worked with John the Dutchman in Vancouver, you know, and these were just short little trips, right? I wasn't apprenticing on them, but in my mind, the way I was seeing it was going to all these shops because I didn't do a proper apprenticeship and putting myself under these people's tutelage and letting them teach me, letting me be coachable and be teachable and learning what I could from them in the short periods of time that I was there, whether it was a week or 2 or 3 or a month or whatever. And this is what I think helps me develop my sort of all-round perspective on tattooing, and my passion for tattooing was having these multiple influences from these great tattoo masters, right? You know, or the people that I couldn't say work with, I might go get a little tattoo from them just to be around them and just to see how they operate, get a sense of them, right? So I did this for years and years, and pretty much until I settled in Australia. When I settled here, then I was like, okay, I settled here in 2007, and that's when I started sort of put my roots down and started doing my thing. And then from 2007 until 2013, I worked for somebody else. I worked at Intervision Tattoo. And then when I opened my own shop here in 2013, my own studio, that's when I thought, okay, well now I'm going to pay it back. I'm going to get apprentices, and I'm going to teach them the right way, right? The way that I would have wanted to be taught, right? And so, but see, I also, you know, like, as some of you might know my history or not, I grew up in a street gang in Toronto from the age of 15 to, you know, early 20s. And so I already grew up in an environment not dissimilar to, you know, a gang with a lot of hazing and a lot of bullying and a lot of, you know, I like to say I was raised by wolves, so to speak, right? When I was 15, 16, 17, I was hanging out with dudes in their mid to late 20s and 30s, and I got bullied a lot, right? But it made me who I am, which, you know, love it or hate it, right? So when I took on my apprentices, there was a little bit of hazing in there just to see what people are made of, right? I don't want to, the common thing you see, the common thread that I've always seen in these apprentices and apprenticeships from all my traveling, and some of my traveling, I didn't necessarily learn what to do. I learned what not to do. I saw mistakes tattoo shop owners were making, and I thought, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to do that. And one of the common things you see in tattooing and tattoo apprenticeships is a tattooer, a shop owner will hire somebody, teach them, like, oh, you be my apprentice. And, that person will learn how to tattoo. Tattooing is not difficult, right? Like, if you can learn to tattoo from YouTube, it's clearly not difficult, right? You take a needle, you dip it in ink, you write it in the skin, right? Making a mark on the skin is not hard. That's not the hard part. Just like being a surgeon, taking a knife and cutting open the skin. Not difficult. Anyone can do that, right? It's all the other stuff. And this is the stuff that you don't learn in the YouTube videos, right? So these tattooers that taught people how to tattoo in the first few weeks there in the shop, here, tattoo an orange, or tattoo yourself, or tattoo your friend. As soon as those people figure out, oh, hey, I know what to do. I don't need this person anymore. They fucking bounce, right? So you've just showed somebody the basics. And not only have you taught them your secrets, so to speak, you have let them loose on the world with zero fucking ethics, and zero morals, and zero education. I vowed never to do that, right? At least not without trying to vet them first. But you'd be surprised how long people can fake being somebody for, right? So I've had apprentices, for, I've probably had 8 or 10 people come through here. And, some of them were here for a year. Because my rule was, and still is, you work in the shop for a year, paid. I don't expect people to work for free. You work in the shop paid for a year, you learn the business, you learn how to run everything. And then after a year of proving yourself to be loyal, dependable, showing up on time, all that kind of thing, then you start to learn to tattoo, right? Then you slowly start to learn the basics. You've got a good foundation, right? And, I've had people lie to me for a year straight about their drug use, about their, their ethics, about their morals. And then once I pick up on it, that they're full of shit, then they, make a big scene, they leave, and they talk a bunch of shit about me like I'm the bad guy, right? And so I've had this happen numerous times. I've had people come in here and do like a couple of months, and then they crack the shits because they're not learning how to tattoo. And I'm like, well, I told you that was the deal, right? You want to learn to tattoo? Go fucking get a YouTube video, right? I'm here to teach the traditional way, right? A good solid foundation, ethics, morals, drawing, business, the whole thing. Stick with me for a few years, you'll be set for life, right? And I stand by that, right? I've got 2, 3 apprentices now in various stages. My senior apprentice at the moment is tattooing on the floor pretty much half the week, doing great little tattoos, learning, super loyal, super faithful. I trust him implicitly, and he's doing really well, right? And that's the way it should be. And he's not impatient. He works hard, and he gets rewarded for it. And he's going to be a really good tattooer one day. We critique each other's drawings. And my second apprentice after that, he's doing a lot of drawing. He's just starting to tattoo. And my youngest apprentice, who just became an apprentice after being an intern for 6 months, she's well on her way to drawing well and working her way up the ladder. And that's the way I view it, right? Because I don't want to just be churning people out. And I take it personal when someone lies to me. It's one of the things I do not like is a lie. And so, there's all these, stories about how rough I've been on my apprentices and stuff. And yeah, some of them might not be, completely untrue, but I'm also very generous. I took some of my apprentices to Japan, all expenses paid. See the temples, meet Horiyoshi, all this stuff, and then, that stuff those stories never get mentioned, right? Just the other stuff, right? Which is funny. I don't care. So in terms of my taking on apprentices, I enjoy teaching, right? And I enjoy teaching in the Japanese fashion, which is I let you watch what I do and I'll answer some questions, right? I'm not sitting down for a craft afternoon explaining everything to you. Someone needs to want to learn, right? And do their own research. And they're in an environment that is permissive to that. You know, they can go watch people tattoo here, they can ask questions, but they have to figure stuff out for themselves. Because that's how you learn. I mean, that's how I learned. And that's, you know, from my understanding, the Japanese method of the apprentice-master relationship is that you let your apprentice steal with their eyes, right? And then you can answer some questions. So that's how I believe you create a good tattooer. All the good tattooers that I am a big fan of, the Japanese ones specifically, did long apprenticeships. I believe Horisumi Forreal did a 10-year apprenticeship, right? And a lot of the standard in Japan is 5 to 7 years, right? And that's what I aim for. I expect people after 2-3 years can be doing little stuff on customers, and then at 5 years they're probably doing big stuff under my tutelage, right? And then they can go from there. And then they're welcome to leave, go to another shop, open their own shop, as long as it's not next door, you know, whatever. Or they stay with me forever, whatever works for them. I don't think that I own my apprentice or anything like that, but I do expect someone that if they start an apprenticeship with me, that they finish it with me, right? I'm completely uninterested in bullshit in terms of starting somebody off and they lose interest or they think they know it all and they take off. That's a break for me, right? So if you're interested in being an apprentice, you can write me a letter. I do everything with a letter first. Write me a handwritten letter, send it to the shop with my name on it, and I'll read your letter. You can send me some of your drawings, a photo of yourself, and tell me a little bit about yourself and your sort of art journey, if you have one. Anyone can learn how to draw, you know. Drawing is a state of mind, just like going to the gym. It's a muscle that needs to be exercised regularly. It needs to be trained, right? So what I look for more in people that I take on as apprentices is character, right? People that have discipline, perseverance, patience, loyalty, honor, self-respect, respect for others, these kinds of things that are important, because if you don't respect yourself and you are not patient and you are not punctual and you are not honorable, then you should not be tattooing, because you are dealing with the public. You are doing something on people that lasts forever. If you're just some pot-smoking dipshit that wants to doodle on paper sometimes and you think, oh, I'll be a tattooer, how good of a tattooer are you going to be? How are you going to have a bedside manner to talk to people and show up on time and change their design when they want to? And all these other things, and having follow-up and replying to emails and all this kind of stuff, right? For some people, I mean, I try to explain to artists, you know, like someone's dog just died and they want you to do their dog portrait and the dog's name on him. And if your bedside manner is that of a dickhead, it makes that a terrible experience for them, right? Sometimes you need to be gentle with people. You need to be soft, you need to be understanding, you need to listen to their story. That's part of the job, right? That's the stuff they don't teach you on YouTube, right? TikTok's not going to teach you how to be a good tattooer and how to deal with people in that way, right? So many young tattooers these days, they just put the headphones on, start up the wand, and off they go, and they don't even look at the client, right? You know, I get pissed off when I go buy a coffee and the cashier doesn't look at me when I pay. I can't imagine how I would feel to get a tattoo and have the tattooer not look me in the eyes or pay attention to me or have a conversation with me before, during, or after the process, right? This is a big part of being in a service industry. And so that's why in my apprenticeships, you know, the first thing that my interns do, because they all start off as interns for 3 to 6 months, is they learn how to answer the door, talk to customers, seat them, get them a drink or a coffee, give them the waiver form to fill out. All these kinds of things to develop their personality and develop their social skills in dealing with the public. If you can't talk to somebody and get them a coffee, you got no business trying to be a tattooer, right? So this is how I start all that. Then they start learning how to sell tattoos and this kind of thing, right? And then by the time they get to tattooing, they've already developed all these skills. They have this great foundation of being social and gregarious and dealing with the public. And this is stuff you can't learn except for by doing, right? Excuse me. So these are all important things, right? One sec. And so this is why it's important to do all this stuff. And this is why my process is as such. Some people balk when I advertise a 3 to 5 year commitment, blah, blah, blah. People go, what the fuck would I commit 3 to 5 years to working in a shop for to learn? I can just, figure it out myself, and off you go, man. There's no shortage of tattooers out there. Hundreds of thousands of tattooers. But real tattooers, I have, 10, 15 tattooers working here at any given time, coming and going all the time. And I can tell the ones that learn properly and the ones that are, figured it out for themselves on YouTube. And you can see the difference in how they interact with the clients and all that kind of thing. And I'm constantly busting their balls to be better socially, right? So this is the process. So if you're interested to be a tattooer, if you've got some artistic skills or creative skills, that helps for sure. But character is the most important thing. So you can write me a letter to Kian, Horisumi Forreal, Unit 306, 4-14 Buckingham Street, Surrey Hills, New South Wales, 2010, Australia. And tell me all about yourself. Again, this is only open to people in Australia. You have to be a citizen or a permanent resident. And it's, 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, low pay, lots of teasing, a little bit of hazing, see what you're made of, and see how you go, all right? Anyways, thanks for listening. That's just my little story on that for today, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.